Jerusalem, Israel. I have to shorten my introductions. This is going to be a little bit of improvisational theater because I have no idea what I'm going to say. Just have to say it a lot faster because my introductions in the last programs, the absent-minded professor got up to 13 minutes, which could be a program in and of itself. Okay, so first of all, we welcome the host of our third episode 3 of our monthly B'nai Anousim seminar, Mrs. Yaffa Batya Costa of the B'nai Anousim. We welcome Moshe, Yaffa's faithful translator into high-class Castilian Spanish. I know the difference because my father worked in the South Bronx. I was in the Puerto Rican Day Parade when I was 4. And then I was in the Cuban Day Parade. They call it the Spanish Day Parade to show they're superior to the Puerto Ricans. They didn't call themselves Cubans. They're like the the German and the Polish Jews. So Moshe gives a beautiful translation simultaneous into his beautiful Spanish. So thank you, Moshe in Mexico City. Thank you to all guests and friends, Romans, countrymen, B'nai Anousim, whoever you are in this Spanish-speaking world, all over the world. I know one young lady is from the Philippines. We thank you all, and our whoever will see this on YouTube. So today is Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 in the Gregorian calendar. It is the 13th of Av 5781 in the Hebrew Israelite calendar. And my name is Lowell Joseph Gallen, and I'm the founder of the Root and Branch Association, the MC of our lecture series, which is now on its second quarter century, 1995 to 2000 at the OU Israel Center. And we thank our friends there who hosted it, Phil Chernovsky, Tony Chernovsky, and Itter Rachel Rusek. And I'm going to hand this over now of course, we thank Professor Asher Matathias of Long Island, Zorba the Jew, a patriarch from the Greek Jewish community, the president of the 5 towns B'nai B'rith. Did I say that right? Yeah, B'nai B'rith, the 5 towns of Long Island, for joining us. He also hosts our monthly Greek Jewry Through the Ages seminar. And so thanks to you all. And now I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Les Glassman, who will introduce our host, the distinguished, the one and only, the incomparable. It's very simple. I never say anything I don't mean. It may sound a little schmaltzy, but reality sometimes is schmaltzy. The Yaffa is unique. And so we welcome her and her guests to start the program. So let's unmute you. Where are you? I have to find you now. Let's see, where are you? Oh, you're over there. Okay, wait. Now I'm going to put you in speaker's view, spotlight.
Wonderful. Okay, Lowell, thank you very much. And it really is always a great honor and a privilege to introduce Rabbanit Yaffa Batya de Costa, who is the founder and CEO of Israel Anousim. And that has been helping Anousim since 2005, an Israeli nonprofit organization. It's made up almost of around 30 organizations, and it's made up of volunteers from all over the world. They're very committed, and most of themselves are Anousim themselves, or B'nai Anousim. People have joined the organization for many years to work with Yaffa Batya in helping B'nai Anousim to make a full and public return to the Jewish faith, traditions, and the Sephardi Jewish from the ancestors. Yaffa Batya's upcoming 30th anniversary of being involved with this movement will be on Purim in 2022, which isn't so far to wait. So we look with great anticipation. And I just want to mention Yaffa because I first met you at the OU, the Israel Center, where you gave the most incredible presentation, which left an indelible impression on everybody who was there. And you are the founder of such a very, very important and vital organization that is so important in Jewish history and in Judaism. And we just wish you and the organization all its success, which you so deserve. So without any further ado, our esteemed speaker for today, Rabbanit Yaffa Batya de Costa.
Oh, Les, thank you so much. And Lowell, thank you also. And I'm just so happy to be here and to do this. And Moshe, if you want to unmute also and put up the PowerPoint because that's what I'm going to talk to.
Okay. Lowell, can you please make me a co-host so I can share my screen?
Which one is you? I see Moshe
Yeah,
Rubes.
yeah, I know. Those are someone that I invited to the meeting. So it's like translator, traductor. That's the one.
Wait a second. Let me see which
Translator.
is you.
Yeah, the one should be showing in screen. Translator.
I
No,
see
it
guest,
just says
guest,
your name.
guest. So you know what? Let's see. I'll make you both co-hosts there. Then I know I got you. So let's see. There's the other Moshe.
No,
Make
don't focus on
co-host.
Moshe. Focus on the translator. It's like that.
Did I get
Translator.
you? Because it actually doesn't say translator. I see host gets it. You're not there. Are you?
There's two Moshe Ruxiger, but those
Yeah, you're
are.
both co-hosts. You're both co-hosts now.
But I'm not on the name Moshe Ruxiger.
Ah, there, because you're not under your name. You're under translator.
Translator.
Okay, I understand. There. Right, now it is. Right, you're listed as translator. I see that.
Okay.
There you go.
Ah, there we go. And can you put it in slide mode? Ah, there you go. Terrific. Thank you so much. Okay, so I just want to make a clarification, Moshe, go off script for like 10 seconds, just to explain that everything that we're going to talk about in today's lecture has to do with B'nai Anousim who have converted to Judaism. That was the path either that they chose or that they had to take because they don't have strong enough evidence of their family, their mother's female line of secret Jews. We work both with converts around the world and also with returnees. The returnees don't have as much difficulty because they can go to Beit Din with their evidences if they're strong enough and get a return certificate from that Beit Din. And the Ministry of Interior does not have an administrative policy that denies those people the ability to make Aliyah. So we work with both converts and returnees, but today we're going to focus only on converts of the B'nai Anousim and specifically also in Latin America. Moshe.
¿Qué tal? Es un gusto iniciar entonces con la traducción de esta reunión de Root and Branch que nos trae la conferencia de la Rabanit Yaffa Batya Costa. Vamos a iniciar diciendo que vamos a enfocarnos en esta conferencia a hablar de aquellos B'nai Anousim que se convirtieron, o sea, que hicieron un proceso de conversión. Ahora, muchos de B'nai Anousim que están regados en el mundo no tienen suficiente evidencia para probar que por línea materna tienen una ascendencia judía. Esto puede significar un problema porque al final de cuentas, en cierto sentido es mucho más fácil para un B'nai Anousim que puede probar su ascendencia como judío por línea materna, presentarse a un Bet Din y con estas referencias hacer el retorno al judaísmo. El Ministerio Interior en el Estado de Israel no le niega la entrada a todos aquellos que tienen suficiente evidencia y puedan probar su línea materna y presentarse a un Bet Din, cosa que es diferente con alguien que se convierte y bueno, hemos hablado de los problemas que representan para todos ellos. Vamos a enfocarnos el día de hoy en aquellos B'nai Anousim que no tuvieron evidencia suficiente para presentar y que tuvieron que hacer una conversión.
Excellent. Okay, first slide. Now, the first slide in the presentation is again about my background. Oh, do we have the first slide?
Yes, I'm trying to do it, but yeah, there we go.
Ah, there we go. Okay, move past that one. Okay, so anybody, you know, in the audience, English speaker, you can read all that biographical, but what I want to talk about is the fact that it says on the original slide for this presentation that I'm the CEO and CCO of this organization. Now that's an unusual title and I made it up, but it's the thing where I have the most fun because CCO stands for Chief Cheerleading Officer. And this is what I was doing this week, cheering other people on, because what we've been doing is working on the formation and establishment of a social and print media team that's going to be global. And we created it this week. So Moshe, if you could explain that and then move to the next slide, please.
Ok, dice, quiere iniciar trayendo una de las noticias que sucedió en esta semana. La verdad es que me presento normalmente como la agente principal de esta fundación llamada Anousim. Es una fundación sin fines de lucro, fundada en el 2005. Sin embargo, cambié un poquito por hacer un poquito de chiste, de broma al respecto, que ahora también soy animadora. La verdad es que esta semana tuvimos la oportunidad de montar un grupo que va a trabajar en redes sociales y todo esto para mover tendencias al respecto. Y la verdad estuve trabajando más como animadora en ese sentido y fue un grupo que va a trabajar en medios sociales e impresos. Entonces estuvimos trabajando con todos estos artículos para publicar. Bueno, vamos a hablar un poco de eso también el día de hoy.
Okay, we can move past that one too. That's our logo. It's about 20 years old. Next slide. Okay, now I want to do just a very quick review of the dilemma for the people in Latin America who are from the B'nai Anousim and who have converted. They're already halakhic Jews, okay, but they're not accepted in two ways. They're not accepted. They're not accepted in Latin American countries by the Jewish communities there because of a community ruling that goes back to 1927 that said, started in Argentina, that said that the Jewish community would not accept either converts or reverts, and a revert is the word they use for our returnee. Our word is returnee, until the end of days, whatever they meant by that. So what's happened over the years, that started in 1927, but it's still in force today, and most people don't know this. Okay, this is part of the difficulty. So what's happened over the years, people who wanted to come back and they had to convert, and they worked with rabbis for conversion, but they created their own communities because they couldn't join the regular Jewish community in these Latin American countries. Now, I looked this up. Rabbi Derry of the Shas Party took over the Ministry of Interior in 2016. So between 2016 and a few months ago, when he was that minister, he created a administrative policy that's saying that only a person who converted in the context of a recognized Jewish community could be accepted for Aliyah. So all of these people in these other communities that the government calls emerging communities, due to the Takana, they can't join a regular Jewish community, are not accepted for Aliyah because they're not a part of a recognized Jewish community. Okay, Moshe.
Bien, haciendo un poquito de repaso de lo que se ha presentado en reuniones previas, tenemos este dilema que presenta para los B'nai Anousim. De entrada, hay B'nai Anousim, existen estos B'nai Anousim que se convierten al judaísmo y están por toda Latinoamérica, países en Latinoamérica. Ahora, no estamos hablando simplemente de gente que llegó y dice que lo son, gente que se convirtió halágicamente. Por otro lado, no son aceptados como miembros de comunidades judías regulares o comunidades judías establecidas y reconocidas en su mayor parte por causa de una takaná que inició en 1927 en Argentina, famosa la takaná que prohíbe hacer conversiones, inició por parte del sector Halevi. Ahora, tenemos que esta takaná prohíbe hacer conversiones, va más allá. De repente una de las cosas que están establecidas en la Takaná es, y esto va a durar hasta el final de los tiempos. ¿Qué significa hasta el final de los tiempos? Quién sabe, pero viene así expresado en el lenguaje de la Takana. Ahora bien, mucha gente no sabe al respecto, no sabe cuál es la política detrás de ello, no saben cómo está estructurada la Takana y tampoco saben cómo es que el Estado de Israel ve a estas personas conversas que de repente en su esfuerzo por vivir un judaísmo se juntan, se organizan y fundan esto que se llaman comunidades emergentes, es decir, grupos de conversos o de Anousim que se juntan para poder hacer rezos y demás, sin embargo no son reconocidos por el Estado de Israel, sino que construyen sus propias comunidades. El Estado de Israel tiene una ley de inmigración, se llama la ley del retorno, que dice que una persona puede inmigrar a Israel si tiene dos requisitos básicos. Uno, que nació de una madre judía, y por supuesto esto tiene que ser probado a través de evidencias, o si fue convertido a judaísmo. El punto aquí es que con la Takana en el continente, en particular en Latinoamérica, es imposible convertirse por la Takana y por otro lado, el Estado de Israel, el Ministerio de Interior, te exige que sea de esa manera, entonces es un callejón sin salida. Ahora bien, el Rab Deri del partido Shas estuvo dentro de este departamento del Ministerio de Interior desde el 2006 y hasta la fecha. Fue quien estuvo detrás de toda esta política de solo se puede convertir aquellos que estén dentro del contexto de una comunidad judía reconocida. Y esto presenta el problema en sí.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next slide. Let's see where we are. Okay, now before I get into the latest news, I just want to do one point of clarification. I'll be off script for a few seconds, Moshe. I was talking to a friend of mine on WhatsApp a few hours ago. And he said to me, well, look, you know, the Israeli government has the ability and actually the responsibility to ensure that whoever they're letting into the country is not going to overrun the country. And I've heard this before. Okay. And, you know, there are so many millions of people who have this ancestry. You know, maybe we could accept 1 million, but not all of them. And he went on and on about this. And so I let him go on. He's a really good friend of mine. And I said, when I had the ability to speak, I said, but the people who are quoting those numbers, it could be 100 million, I think they've settled on 200 million now. It used to be they would say there's anywhere from 100 to 500 million people with this ancestry. The problem is just having ancestry is not enough. Okay. And what kind of ancestry and what kind of proof or evidences they have? Not many people have the evidences. So if we're only talking about converts, okay, how many people want to convert? It's a very, very small number. But these people love to quote millions and millions of people may have this ancestry, and that scares people in Israel. It, I think, causes some of the resistance that pops up. So all I want to do, and I'm a business manager, my background is business management and education. All I want to do is have the Ministry of Interior open it up to, let's say 5,000 people, okay, who converted and are in Latin America. So we're freeing those up. First of all, let's see who applies. Let's see if they qualify. Okay, and let 5,000 people come in. We could do that today, just 5,000 people. But right now, there aren't people converting and there aren't people even looking to get help to return because they think Israel won't help them at all and won't have anything to do with allowing them to make Aliyah. And that, in some cases, I don't know how many cases, has to do with this number that keeps getting thrown out all the time. Oh, there could be anywhere from 100 to 2 million, 100 million to 200 million people. It's like the obvious question is, where would we put 100 to 200 million people? So it really does not help our case in helping the B'nai Anousim to constantly quote those numbers instead of being more realistic. Moshe?
Bien, entonces lo que nos presenta nuestro ponente es, mucho se habla respecto de los números y se especula respecto a cuántos B'nai Anousim puede haber alrededor del mundo. Estos números generan especulación y trabajan en dos frentes. Uno, como impresionando por la cantidad de gente que puede tener un linaje o un legado judío en sus genes. Y por otra parte, el hecho es que el Estado de Israel, la gente también en Israel se espanta por lo exponencial que esto representa. Dice Yaffa que estuvo hablando hace unas horas con un amigo suyo a través del WhatsApp y dice, mira, el gobierno de Israel, además de tener la posibilidad de aceptar e incluir a estas personas dentro de en el Estado mismo, también tiene la responsabilidad de que no se invada el Estado y no se llegue a sobrepoblar de la noche a la mañana. Por lo tanto, cuando la gente expresa números como 2 millones de personas que pueden llegar a ser B'nai Anousim alrededor del mundo, lo primero que resulta es, el Estado de Israel se espanta, la gente que habla al respecto dice, ¿dónde vamos a meter tanta gente? Esto sinceramente sería una debacle para el país. Sin embargo, no, o sea, no es bueno hablar en estos términos porque de entrada, o sea, no generan una buena imagen. Por otro lado, en realidad no todos los que podrían tener ancestros judíos quieran siquiera acercarse para ser reconocidos como parte del pueblo judío. Si nos referimos solamente a los conversos, aquellos que hicieron o se esforzaron como para regresar, estaríamos hablando de muchos menos. Ahora, la gente le gusta mucho subir los números y platicar. De repente no ayuda tanto esto. Ahora, nuestra ponente, la Rabbanit Yaffa, dice, yo como una gerente de negocios que estoy acostumbrado a tratar con situaciones y la resolución de estos, simplemente le he propuesto al Ministerio del Interior israelí, ¿sabes qué? No nos vamos a ir a números excesivos. Vamos a hablar de 50,000 personas. Aquellos conversos que hicieron un esfuerzo, que pasaron ya también por un proceso de conversión, y seguro 50,000 personas sería un grupo manejable de personas que podrías incluir, que podrías darles la oportunidad de ingresar. Si nos referimos y limitamos exactamente a la gente que ya hizo un proceso de conversión, en realidad hablamos de un grupo bastante manejable de personas.
Yofi. Okay, so I'll go point by point on this slide. The conversation I had with Rabbi Mendel Kessen, my husband, Rabbi Pinchas, and I listen to his shiurim all the time. He's out of Lakewood, New Jersey. And I got a hold of him, got to talk to him on the phone. He knew nothing about the B'nai Anousim, not a bit. And of course, I wasn't surprised by that because they don't teach about this in the yeshivas and the schools. Even in the United States, they don't talk about the Inquisition. The Holocaust museums, it's wonderful to teach about the Shoah. Okay, I'm not opposed to that. But what happened before the Shoah, okay, of a few hundred years was this thing called the Inquisition, which was the foundation that the Shoah utilized about this so-called problem of the Jewish people and how to solve it. And the Nazis even sent people to Spain to look at Inquisition records to see how they had treated the Jews. Okay, and they developed a lot of ideas based on that. So I don't know what Rabbi Kessen would do with any of this information, but it just reinforced in my mind that we need to get a hold of a lot of rabbis who are doing shiurim online, who are doing great, Torah learning online, but they could also help us in explaining to people about the B'nai Anousim.
Ok, nos dice entonces nuestro ponente que tuvo una plática, una conversación con el rabbi Mendel Kessen. Él está en Lakewood, Nueva Jersey, y resulta que el Rapinjas, el esposo de la Rabbanit Yaffa, tiene una relación cercana con él. Dentro de la plática se desarrolló el tema de B'nai Anousim. Resulta que el Rab Mendel no tenía idea, no sabía acerca de la historia, el trasfondo de los B'nai Anousim, en particular en Latinoamérica. Y es muy curioso porque estos no son temas que se desarrollan, por ejemplo, en la yeshivot, no son tema de ponencias o tema de estudio en la yeshivot. Y si bien A través de los Estados Unidos hay museos que refieren información y educan, por ejemplo, en torno al Holocausto, a la Shoah, no se refieren a la Inquisición, siendo que la Inquisición sentó las bases para el éxito técnico después de la Shoah o del desarrollo mismo. Sabemos que los nazis, ellos vieron en la estructura de la Inquisición un ejemplo, y de hecho los líderes nazis pidieron investigar cómo la Inquisición organizó y segregó a los judíos para poder ahora iniciar un plan en contra de los judíos en Europa.
Okay, so I'm still working on 2 cases in Israel of 2 young women who are in Israel. In one case, the woman's conversion, conservative conversion, is not being accepted here. She's from the B'nai Anousim. Obviously, both of them are from the B'nai Anousim. So her conversion, Masorti conversion, is not accepted, and they don't accept her marriage to an Israeli. Okay, so that's in the works. And this other young woman made Aliyah on a return certificate that she got from a Beit Din in New York. Okay, she did the same thing I did. Came here to Israel 5 years ago. This was right around the time or just before when Aryeh Deri took the Ministry of Interior. So she came here. Now she's engaged to be married this fall, and the rabbinate is refusing to marry her. So we're working on those 2. And by the way, these are 2 representative cases. I think we're going to see more and more of these kinds of cases of people somehow getting to come to Israel, and then they're blocked and given a hard time once they get here to Israel. Moshe? Uh-oh. Did we lose Moshe?
Yes, but I'm back.
Okay. But the
Okay.
PowerPoint's not there. Okay. There we go.
Can you see it?
Not the slides.
Okay.
There we go. They're there. Okay.
Bien, entonces nos dice la Ramanit que el siguiente punto es, ella ha seguido trabajando con 2 casos en Israel correspondientes a 2 mujeres. El primer caso es de una mujer que se convirtió en el ala conservadora a través de una conversión masortí. Ella está casada con un israelí y ha tenido problemas para poder lograr su aceptación y que le den acceda a la ley de retorno. El segundo es un caso de un retorno en sí, como el que desarrolló en su momento también Yaffa. Se hizo en Newark, también en Estados Unidos. Hace 5 años ella llegó a Israel. Para entonces ya estaba en el Ministerio de Interior, Aryeh Deri, y ha estado tratando de lograr su reconocimiento como retornada. Sin embargo, ha sido difícil poder lograrlo hasta ahora.
Okay, now the social media team we're going to talk a lot more about. That's just a placeholder to mention that we added Spanish speakers now this month, and that's going to grow. So I'm going to talk more about that later. Go ahead, Moshe.
Muy bien, otro de los puntos es que inició ya el equipo de medios sociales. Este mes añadió a hispanohablantes en este grupo y bueno, estamos esperando que crezca, todavía está en desarrollo el grupo en sí.
Okay, and then the last comment on this slide is that I finally have a really good understanding of why there was such resistance starting in 1927 to the B'nai Anousim and why there is today in Israel. So in Latin American countries, it was the fear of Roman Catholics. 1927 was only 107 years since the last auto de fe in 1820. 107 years, that wasn't very much. And the Roman Catholics hadn't gotten off that yet, okay, of persecuting Jews. Maybe not so much killing them at the stake, but at least not liking Jews very much. So aside from the other reason of people just wanting to marry into the Jewish world, which is never accepted as a reason for conversion, aside from a concern about that, they were also concerned about a backlash, a potential backlash from the Roman Catholics that the Jews were stealing people out of the churches, which is something the Jews would never do. These people were not really in the churches. They were secretly Jewish and did whatever they had to do to stay out of trouble. But the same thing is going on in Israel today. There's a fear of backlash from the Christian world and a reduction in tourism. There are a lot of Christian tourists that come to Israel, and it's a major portion of the gross national product here in Israel, GDP. So there's a concern about backlash again, that Jews or Israel or both would be accused of stealing Christians out of Christian churches. Moshe?
Bien. Aprendió también en estos días un poquito más respecto del trasfondo de la Takanao, que se desarrolló en 1927 en Argentina, y la resistencia al retorno al acceso de los Bnei Anousim. Tenemos que en países de Latinoamérica había un miedo real a el catolicismo romano, a los feligreses, pues no habían pasado muchos años, apenas han pasado 7 años de que se desarrolló el último auto de fe. Entonces, en la mente de los católicos estaba todavía este ruido respecto a la Inquisición, respecto a las denuncias en torno a los judíos, y en particular un odio que no se había todavía calmado, no se había asentado en la mente de los católicos, si bien no actos directos de ataques o violencia, sí permeaba en la mente de los feligreses un odio hacia los judíos. Otra de las cosas es que el tema es que muchos jóvenes Halevi estaban comenzando a casarse con chicas no judías. Por supuesto, en la halajá misma está prohibido que alguien venga al judaísmo a convertirse por interés marital. Y esto fue una de las cosas que cerraron las puertas de las conversiones, y también el hecho de que podía verse como un tanto proselitismo, es decir, ahora vamos a sacar a estas chicas de su feligresía, por lo tanto podría haber una respuesta en contra por parte de la Iglesia Católica Romana en torno a por qué te llevas a estos feligreses. Curiosamente, esto es exactamente lo que sucede hoy en día en el Estado de Israel. El gobierno de Israel teme una respuesta en contra por parte de los cristianos evangélicos en estos momentos, que forman una gran parte del turismo que llega a Israel y deja las divisas, que es una fuente importante de ingresos para el Estado, por temor a que haya una respuesta. O sea, de alguna manera hay ciertas medidas, ahora esto vaya a generar una respuesta en contra, y esto se vea en una reducción del turismo y de los ingresos que esto representa.
Metsuyan, Metsuyan. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to give a summary of this and move on, Moshe. What we've done is I've joined a social media platform called Quora, and there are several forums on that platform. So now, along with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, we will be having a very strong presence on Quora. And these people are also very savvy social media people, some of whom may join us. But right now, just to give you the bottom line, we have now about 250. That's an interesting number. I posted a couple of articles and they got over 250 views this week. But the other number, 250, is we now have 250 social media people in this team. In another couple of weeks, that will double. And we're hoping by October, after the high holidays are over, by October, we'll be in 1,000 or more people doing social media on all of this. And the new people who joined us just this week are from Portugal, Mexico, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Brazil, and a lot of people, of course, from the US and Israel. That's the team right now. Go ahead, Moshe.
Bien, entonces, una de las noticias que también resultó esta semana es que ella se unió a Quora, que es otra plataforma de redes sociales además de Facebook, Instagram y otras redes sociales con las que ha venido trabajando, se unió a ellos y es muy curioso, en los artículos que se han subido últimamente en redes sociales, las últimas vistas han llegado hasta 250 vistas en esta semana y curiosamente esta semana se agregaron 250 personas a este equipo que va a trabajar en redes sociales. Y por supuesto estamos esperando que esto siga creciendo. De hecho, esperamos que para estos días se doble el número y para octubre, después de las fiestas mayores del judaísmo, llegue a los 1000 personas o superar las 1000 personas. Por supuesto, estamos hablando de gente alrededor del mundo que se ofrecen como activistas voluntarios. Hablamos de gente en Portugal, México, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Brasil, Estados Unidos, Israel.
Great, great. Okay, next slide. I'm going to move on a little bit faster. Oh, we can move past. Well, the elephant in the room, just to remind people, is this whole thing about the B'nai Anousim. They're trying to come home, both spiritually and physically. The spiritual coming home is, of course, the conversion or the return, going before a Beit Din and getting their Jewish identity confirmed. And then the physical return is coming home to the land of Israel. Okay, so it's a big, huge elephant in the room. A lot of people in Israel know about this, but they don't want to touch it. They don't want to do anything with it, and they won't even discuss it, talk about it. Okay, Moshe.
Bueno, hablemos someramente respecto del elefante en el cuarto. Es este tema de que o sea, hay algo grande ahí del que nadie quiere hablar, de que nadie quiere referirse. Entonces, sabemos que hay una búsqueda por parte de Bnei Anousim de un retorno espiritual, un retorno en general, tanto físico como espiritual. Hablamos de un retorno espiritual cuando se presenta un Bnei Anousim ante un Beit Din y este hace lo propio para dar un retorno alágico a esta persona, a mi Israel, al pueblo de Israel en general. Y también hablamos de un retorno físico, cuando ahora converso, retornado, viaje ahora y pueda vivir en la tierra de Israel. Y aunque es muy conocido el elefante blanco que habla de un problema de la Takaná y por otra parte que no se puede hacer este regreso si no hay una conversión reconocida que va en contra de la Takaná, todo este asunto es conocido en Israel. Sin embargo, la gente o tiene miedo de hablar de ello o simplemente no quiere molestarse, meterse en un problema como este.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, I'm going to go very quick. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Quora, internet media campaign, online news and periodicals like Ami magazine and other magazines that are online, internet blogs and radio campaigns. I was interviewed 3 times last month for an internet blog by Lori Cardoza Moore. Okay, and by the way, we do have a YouTube channel. It hasn't been used over the past few years, but now we're going to revitalize it and we're going to put these videos on our YouTube channel as well as Lori Cardoza Moore's interviews of me on her podcast, and anything else we do is going to also go on our YouTube channel. We're going to have a letter writing campaign to influencers all over the world so that they can influence Israeli influencers. And one of our ladies who was on the call the other day said that they've already started writing letters to Israeli embassies in Latin America. Okay, they will, and we talked about it. They're going to write letters to Shlachim of the of Jaffa, Jewish Agency for Israel. Okay, all kinds of other influencers. Print media in English, Spanish, and Portuguese for now. We'll do other languages later, especially Hebrew and Arabic. We have an Arabic writer who will join us. There'll be phone call campaigns after October, well, after the holidays, starting in October, for people to also call some of these influencers outside the country in the diaspora, Jewish influencers, Jewish federations, Jewish foundations, all kinds of organizations, as well as calling people in Israel. And of course, webinars on Zoom like this one. Okay, Moshe.
Bien, entonces, parte de las estrategias que se están implementando para ayudar a los Anousim a través del mundo, en particular Latinoamérica, uno de ellos es trabajar en redes sociales, una campaña en redes sociales, llámese Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Quorum y algunas otras redes sociales. También una campaña mediática en Internet enfocándose en sitios de noticias o en periódicos como la revista AMI. Además, trabajar mediante blogs y campañas de radio. Curiosamente, también recibió ya una entrevista por parte de Lori Cardosa Morse respecto a estos temas de Bnei Anousim. Están también por publicarse, tanto como un podcast por parte de Lori Cardosa y además en el canal de YouTube que va a estar manejando esta Anousim. Entonces, esto es parte de dar a conocer toda esta información. Hay una campaña, además, de escribir cartas a embajadas israelíes, pero también hacer contacto y escribir correos electrónicos, hacer contacto con influencers israelíes para que influyan, valga la redundancia, en medios sociales, en redes sociales, para que la gente conozca del problema y se haga ruido al respecto con la intención de mover hacia un cambio en la política que maneja el Ministerio del Interior. Ahora, ahí también en medios impresos se trabaja enviando cartas, artículos, tanto a embajadas como a enviados, por ejemplo, diplomáticos en los diferentes países, haciéndoles llegar esta información. Incluso, nos dice la Rabanit, tienen ya dentro del el equipo de trabajo gente que lo va a escribir en árabe. Hay una campaña también de llamadas telefónicas y, por supuesto, seminarios en Zoom a través de Internet, como lo que estamos haciendo en este momento.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the letter writing campaign, we'll talk about replacement theology as the root cause of Christian anti-Semitism, but that's going to be focused on the Christian world. Okay, there are many Christians who don't believe in replacement theology, and these are the ones who are called pro-Israel Christians, or if you will, they are called Christian Zionists, and there are millions of them. But the ones who are anti-Semitic, of course, don't believe in replacement theology. They think that Christians have replaced the Jews in God's plans and purposes. So that's one of the fights we're taking on, because that's part of the problem of what's going on with anti-Semitism and why there's all this difficulty. And if that problem can be solved, or at least a good portion of it, then there doesn't have to be so much of a fear of Christianity. So we'll be doing public advocacy, demanding justice for the Bnei Anousim through global influencers, appealing to all of these organizations, the Israeli Interior, the Rabbinate, the NGOs in Israel, Knesset members, Jewish Zionists, and Israeli embassies and federations I mentioned before. People who want to learn advocacy skills will be able to do that with me. And the Jewish Christian relations work we'll do with the pro-Israel Christians. They're going to have their own social media team. Okay. Quite different from the one we're going to be doing about the Bnei Anousim, just on the topic of replacement theology. Go ahead, Moshe.
Ok, de lo que la campaña de enviar cartas se trata, es informar. Mucho de ello es exponer a este elefante en el cuarto. Parte de toda esta desinformación que existe es la llamada teología del reemplazo, que se maneja en un gran sector del cristianismo evangélico y tiene que ver con que dicen que el cristiano ha venido a reemplazar al judío en sus funciones o en su lugar en particular, sin entrar mucho en detalle. Ahora, no quiere decir que todos los cristianos manejen este punto de vista. Hay algunos que se hacen llamar cristianos sionistas o simplemente cristianos, que aunque manejan una teología al respecto, no consideran que son el reemplazo del pueblo judío, ni mucho menos, y tienen un punto de vista pro Israel, pro nación, pro judíos. Y bueno, hay que exponer estas ideas para que la gente lo conozca y venga a paliar una situación que enfrente al gobierno de Israel de un tanto de miedo. Es decir, si ahora vamos a traer conversos y demás, esto parezca proselitismo, parezca que estamos quitándole feligreses al mundo cristiano. También hacer esta defensa pública demandando justicia para los Bnei Anousim a través de influencers alrededor del mundo. Llevar también y apelar al gobierno del interior, al rabinato, a fundaciones no gubernamentales, a los miembros de la Knesset y también a embajadas israelíes y federaciones judías para que conozcan de qué se trata el movimiento de Bnei Anousim, cuáles son las raíces, cómo es la forma también para poder ayudar y resolver esta situación. Y, por supuesto, traer por frente toda esta forma de abogar por el desarrollo de Bnei Anousim y que se formen activistas al respecto. También generar relaciones en judeocristianos o cristianos que tienen una tendencia pro Israel y que ven con buenos ojos al pueblo y el Estado de Israel.
Moshe, I have one more comment to make, and that is, and I love this slide, do what you can with what you have where you are, and that is that this is such a powerful strategy because we're not asking people for money. We're asking people for their time and their skills in letter writing, in making calls, and being on social media and posting content that they'll be getting from me. Okay, it's all going to come filtered down from me, and articles that I select from the internet and whatever. Okay, so anybody can do this. They can pick their spot if they want to do social media or not. They don't feel comfortable making phone calls, so they can do something else. Whatever it is they want to do. Okay, and it's just about time and skills. Next slide. Oh, but go ahead and translate. Sorry.
Bueno, entonces, esta estrategia que estamos generando, nos dice la Raoni, me parece una estrategia muy poderosa porque de entrada no estamos pidiendo dinero. Muchas veces en el argot de desarrollar una campaña, esto puede resultar en una situación en contra, una situación difícil. Refiriéndonos a la frase de Theodore Roosevelt, donde dice, haz lo que puedas con lo que tienes, donde sea que estés. Justo eso es lo que estamos solicitando, que la gente se involucre, no con dinero, con tiempo y con los recursos a su disposición. Es decir, tienes una computadora y acceso a internet, si puedes postear, si puedes subir cosas a redes sociales, si puedes mandar artículos a la gente que conoces, si puedes hacer videos al respecto, por supuesto, todo ello está siendo filtrado a través de la Rabanit para que la gente tenga un contenido pulcro al respecto. Sin embargo, pueden ayudar con aquello que se sientan cómodos. Si a alguno no le gusta tal vez hacer llamadas telefónicas, pero tiene la facilidad de postear cosas en Twitter o alguna otra plataforma, toda la ayuda es bienvenida.
Yofi. Okay. We can skip this slide. Thank you. This is again the map of the world in terms of the various countries that have people who are descended from the Spanish or Portuguese, the Bnei Anousim. And there's a legend down there. This is called the Western Sephardi or Anousim diaspora. And the different colors are because some are just Spanish and some are just French, some are just Portuguese, and others are different combinations of those two. Moshe?
Tenemos entonces nuestro atlas respecto de la diáspora Anousim, conocida como tal, y todo donde fueron desparramados judíos alrededor del mundo, en particular en Latinoamérica, pero también tenemos que aquellos judíos que pudieron moverse mismo dentro de Europa, llámese Francia, o judíos españoles que se fueron todo en el área de Italia, Balcanes, y por supuesto Medio Oriente, África, el norte de África, Además, las mezclas que de repente pudieron haberse dado, es portugueses y españoles que fueron para Centroamérica, y por todo Latinoamérica y parte de los Estados Unidos y Canadá, además, por supuesto, de Filipinas y tan lejos como Australia.
Now, one more thing, just as a note, I got contacted, I don't know if you can see my cursor right here, a little bit north and to the west of Australia is an island called East Timor. Timor, there's the western side and an eastern side. Western side of Timor is part of Indonesia. The eastern side of Timor is called East Timor. It's its own country. And a lady just contacted me from East Timor. She's a diplomat. She's going back to Portugal in a couple of weeks. And once she gets back to Portugal, she's going to contact me again and we're going to talk some more about her getting involved. Go ahead, Moshe.
Bueno, es muy curioso respecto de este atlas, porque si hablamos de tan lejos como Australia, hay una isla que se llama Timor. Esta isla está dividida en dos, son dos países diferentes. El este de la isla corresponde a este país que es parte de Timor, y Yaffa contactó a una diplomática que trabaja en este país. Ella está viajando a Portugal y están iniciando pláticas por sus vínculos que tiene con todo este tema de Anousim. Entonces, pues bueno, es destacable lo lejos que pudo llegar toda esta relación.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our call to action to recruit as many advocates and social media people, truth tellers that we can. Recruit more rabbis, and I'm sending out more and more emails to rabbis. We're focused on Europe right now, then we're going to be getting more rabbis in the USA, and finally I'm going to be contacting a lot of rabbis all over Latin America. Let's see what they have to say to me. That's about it because we've used this slide before. Oh, and contacting me directly through email. My email address is down at the bottom of this slide, Batya, combination of my two first names, at yahoo.com. If you'd like to contact me directly and see how you could fit into one of these teams and join the work. And I'll write you an introduction email to the team leader for the team that you would like to join. And then you can choose, how much time you'd like to devote to this per week, an hour or two or whatever, and what specifically kinds of things you'd like to do, whether it's social media or letter writing or phone calling or whatever you'd like to do. You can work with the team leader on that. And all of the content coming to all the teams, again, is going to come from me because I know, quite a bit about this, but also information will bubble up in terms of questions that people are asking and other kinds of information that they want or need. And the teams will get that information back to me and I'll put something together content-wise for everybody to use as a baseline. They don't have to use quote unquote, but as a baseline information that they can use. Go ahead, Moshe.
Muy bien, parte del trabajo es ahora también en reunir mucho más gente que quiera hacer abogar por el apoyo a Anousim, tanto en medios sociales, todos aquellos que sean gurús en medios sociales y buenazos al respecto, y gente que quiera decir simplemente la verdad en diferentes grupos como de presión. Por supuesto, reclutar a más rabinos que quieran trabajar. De por sí ya hay un grupo considerable de rabinos que trabajan ayudando a aquellos que van a hacer retorno en los diferentes Batei Dinim o tribunales rabínicos para ello. Va a estar contactando esta semana más rabinos en Europa y además va a trabajar con rabinos en los Estados Unidos y espera poder acercarse también a rabinos en Latinoamérica. Es bien importante que toda la gente que quiera tener contacto, ser miembro de este proyecto y trabajar mano a mano con Anousim, pueda contactarse al correo que está hasta abajo, YAFF, luego Batya con Y, @yahoo.com, es la suma de sus dos nombres resumidos, y esto para poder referirlos, es decir, la gente puede hacer contacto en este correo electrónico. Una vez se hace, ella lo dirige con el equipo que pueda ser mejor y desarrollar las aptitudes de cada quien. Toda la información que llega es procesada, filtrada a través de los grupos, a través de Yaffa misma, para que pueda haber una base sólida respecto a la información y respecto a cómo dirigir la información para poder obtener los mejores resultados.
Metsuyan, Metsuyan. Okay, so next slide, but I think we're going into Q&A, questions and answers. Yes, here we go, Q&A. So Les, if you could facilitate the Q&A, I would only ask that people make their questions as short and to the point as they can, so that Moshe can translate the question, and then of course he'll translate my answer as well. Okay.
But I just want to mention, well, to thank you, first of all, for a phenomenal presentation. As always, really, we all look forward to whatever you say, because it's so important. But you mentioned Rabbi Mendel Kissen. So I know Rabbi Kissen pretty well, actually, and he comes here, he's got a home here in Jerusalem. And he comes here at least once a year. Sometimes he's even a patient of mine over here. But it's at least twice a year, I think, that he comes. And yeah, it would be wonderful that he gets on board, because he's very, very well respected. And I'll just quickly mention, about over 30 years ago, he gave a talk in Johannesburg for over 3 hours, and nobody moved in that talk. And there were like over 300 people in the room. It was at the Kollel. So you know, you're right. If you make the connection with like the important rabbis, you know, word will spread. And something must be done. There's not even a question. So when he comes, I'll give his contact details here in Israel when he comes. He always contacts me.
And the thing is, was so engaged. He had so many questions. He even had to slow me down, and he'd say, no, don't go on to that yet. I want to ask something else over here. We spoke for an hour and a half, Les. That's how engaged and how interested he was.
No, he's very, very,
okay. It was an hour and a half.
But he's very well respected in the very like Orthodox circles and worldwide. And I put a lot of his videos on my YouTube, and there've been thousands of views. And whenever he comes, the rooms always full. They full. He can fill up a hall very easily. You just mentioned Mendel Kissen's going to be addressing certain topics, and people really want to hear what he has to say because they respect him so much.
No, I got it. My husband and I listen to his shiurim all the time. Okay, so that's a little sidebar. Okay. So are there any questions?
Comments? Yeah, if there's any comments from our esteemed audience as well out there. Prof. Asher, you always have a wonderful comment. So if you've got anything to mention.
Thank you. No, it's always very absorbing lecture and anecdotes. I spoke to Rabbi Leon on Tisha B'Av. In fact, he had a bilingual program. It was magnificent about the Anousim. And I raise exactly that question. I always now will be incorporating the question, are we doing anything? Are you doing anything? Are we doing anything to promote the unity of Israel by including the Anousim in the greater Israel panorama? You know, it's a beautiful idea. And he seemed to be more optimistic. He mentioned that in his recent trip to Israel, he always meets with them. And there has been a slight concession to the reality of this situation, that is an issue that you cannot overlook. So to the extent that this goes on, it's beautiful. Otherwise, it will create another dichotomy, another division, needless division among our people, you know, between them and us. Only the them are, you know, lesser Jews for some reason. And they're not. They are to be embraced and to be welcome. So I wish maybe our audience can share perhaps their experiences, so that we can understand the situation better from their personal perspective, frankly, because I'm still learning, and I started learning when I went to El Paso 5 years ago, and I just take it all in. I would
Right.
appreciate it to hear impressions of others. Thank you, Les. I love it. I love the diversity. I mean, we live the diversity of Judaism. This is what it is. It's not one-dimensional, And Rabbi Cook said that. Rabbi Sachs says that. Said that. May rest in peace. And of course, most of all, I love Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, the kind of hen that he had while he was alive in the 20th century. It's just magnificent, We should be in search of God, but more than that, God is in search of man, and we should be welcoming him.
Right.
Thank you, Yaffa.
Thank you, Asher. So is there anyone in the group that wants to talk about their own understanding of this? If we don't
Please.
have questions, anyone like to share?
Bien, pasamos a la parte de preguntas y respuestas. Si alguien en este momento quiere compartir algo propio de la ponencia de este día.
Thank you, Moshe. That's magnificent.
Yeah, may I share something? Perhaps I knew, but I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit better. Can you hear me?
Yes,
You wanna-
please. Yes.
Yes, I
Do
can
you
hear
want to
you.
put the video on as
Okay,
well?
I am a B'nai Anousim too. Oh, my video is off, yes. Okay, let me just try to. I'm a B'nai Anousim too. So, but all my life, my experience is that we were raised with suspicion about the Catholic Church. So we never had like Christian stuff at home, So that's why I suspected about it. So my question is, I just wanted to tell you that I did the mitochondrial DNA test, and I had a match with a woman in Brazil. I contacted her, and a miracle happened because she said, like me, she also thinks her family is believed to come from the B'nai Anousim. So I'm now trying to convert at the Boston Rabbinical Court. So you see, my question is whether this is accepted as a proof, of Judaism. This amazing coincidence.
Okay, so I'll answer that. When we work with returnees, there are 4 categories of evidence that the Beit Din wants to see that are the strongest. Okay, if we're talking about strong evidences, because there's also proof. So I'll talk about proof after that. So the number 1 category of evidence. Maria, can you turn off your microphone, please? We have a.
I did.
Oh, okay. So the number 1 category of evidence is customs and traditions, things that the women did mainly in the home, cooking, not cooking meat with dairy, separating dishes also, checking an egg for blood, and if the egg had a spot of blood, it would be thrown away. Mourning rites, covering mirrors in a house of mourning when someone died, someone saying they want to be buried in a shroud, which is a Jewish custom. No music in the home during mourning, sitting Shiva 7 days. It goes on and on and on. And I have articles about this if anyone's interested in reading about the customs, so they can ask family members, the mother, the grandmother, the auntie, the cousins about the customs. That's number 1. Number 2 is the country of origin of the ancestors, if you know, obviously, if you know any of this. Spain, Portugal, the island colonies, whatever. Evidence number 3 is names in the family. People do a family tree, and they do genealogy research, and they look at names. Some names are very very well-known crypto-Jewish names. Absolutely no question of a doubt, it's a crypto-Jewish name. I have one in my family. There's no way to think of that name as anything else but a made-up name to hide the Jewishness. And number 4 is DNA. Now, let's go backwards. Number 4 is the least. Custom and tradition is the most strong. So let's go backwards. DNA alone is not enough. DNA alone with family names, not enough. DNA with family names with knowing the origin, the country of origin, without customs, not enough. Okay, you have to have evidences in all 4 categories. Go ahead, Moshe.
Bien, entonces lo que nos presenta Juan Carlos Vázquez es, bueno, él conoce que es un judío Bnei Anousim, ha tenido estas sospechas durante toda su vida, nunca se involucraron tanto en cuestiones de cristianismo y siempre había la sospecha. Hicieron una prueba de DNA que arrojó una relación con una persona en Brasil, al final preguntaron con ella y dijo que tenía también una ascendencia de Bnei Anousim, en resumidas cuentas. Pregunta, ok, una prueba genética puede presentarse ante un bedino del Estado de Israel como una prueba de que eres un Bnei Anousim, y Yaffa entonces nos explica, hay 4 requisitos para presentar ante un bedín, ante un tribunal rabínico que te pueda dar un certificado de retorno, y es en orden de importancia que las voy a ir nombrando. La primera tiene que ver con costumbres y tradiciones que puedas relatar acerca de tu familia. Por ejemplo, no sé, mi mamá, mi abuela, mi bisabuela no cocinaban carne y leche juntos, o separaban los trastes a la hora de cocinar, o revisaban el huevo para que no tuviera una gota de sangre, o algunas costumbres respecto a los días de luto, por ejemplo, cubrir los espejos, no tener música, enterrarse de forma muy particular, como solo lo hacen los judíos, o tener este periodo de luto conocido como Shiva, tal vez no el nombre, pero sí un periodo definido de días. Esto es una de las pruebas más fuertes. El segundo es que el país de origen de los ancestros de quien reclama ser un Bnei Anousim sean países en donde hubo judíos que fueron entonces exiliados, llámese colonias españolas, portuguesas, o los países España, Portugal, Marruecos y demás. Ahora bien, el tercero son los nombres en la familia. Hay nombres que se relacionan directamente, por ejemplo, con criptojudíos, y no hay duda al respecto. Yaffa nos dice que cuando ella desarrolló su proceso de retorno, una de las cosas que presentó también fue esto, y había un nombre en la familia que definitivamente no podría haber duda que esto fuera sino un nombre criptojudío, es decir, se nombró así para poder esconderse de la Inquisición y simplemente eludir allí estas investigaciones. Y el cuarto y último son pruebas genéticas de ADN. Esto, aunque es una prueba más, es la que tiene menos peso. En realidad, si tuvieras, por ejemplo, una prueba de ADN y dijeras, ¿sabes qué? Me muestra que soy, no sé, 37, 40 o 60% judío de tal o cual tradición, o ashkenazí, sefardí, lo que sea, no tiene suficiente peso para la hora de presentarlo, sino que a la hora de mezclarlo con los otros requisitos, llámese costumbres, que tienen mucho más peso, y en realidad, una vez teniendo los 4 requisitos, es como te puedes presentar y pensar que puede tener éxito una solicitud de retorno.
Now, why is DNA not enough? Because if you look at Sephardi people from Spain and Portugal, they break down into 2 subcategories, conversos and Bnei Anousim. Conversos are people whose ancestors were Sephardi Jews. They converted to Catholicism, probably under duress, but then they fully assimilated into the Catholic world, taking on all of Christianity, did not carry on customs and traditions, and hide as Jews. So the rule in Judaism is after 4 generations of parents not teaching their children Jewish customs, traditions, Judaism, etc., starting with the 5th generation, they are no longer Jewish. They are now considered Gentile, And if someone wanted to come back to their ancestors' people, the Sephardi, they'd have to convert. Okay, so we have conversos who have DNA that goes back to Jews, but they lost their Jewishness according to Jewish tradition if, you know, they didn't pass down. Now, for the Bnei Anousim, these are the people who kept custom and tradition, were persecuted in the Inquisition for being secret Jews, for doing something that was a crime in the Catholic world called Judaizing. In other words, trying to be a Jew and observe the law of Moses. Okay, so that's why that's the number one custom and tradition that the rabbis look for. And DNA is, sometimes people start with DNA. They want to see, you know, from a DNA point of view, if they have maybe Jewish ancestors. But if they were to go to a rabbi with just DNA, the rabbi would say that's not enough.
Ahora bien, ¿por qué no es suficiente? Yes. ¿Por qué no es suficiente simplemente con una prueba de ADN? Hay que conocer que, en particular, en la tradición o en el segmento sefaradí de España y Portugal, hay dos grandes categorías. Aquellos que son conversos y aquellos que son Bnei Anousim. Llámese conversos a la persona cuyos ancestros pudieron haber emigrado, pudieron haber sido perseguidos por parte de la Inquisición de Portugal, España o alguno de estos países, y llegar a algún otro país. Sin embargo, en el proceso de presión en torno a la religión, ellos adoptaron las costumbres y la religión. Si bien en lo secreto pudieron haber conservado la fe, abiertamente se comportaban como católicos, vamos a llamarlo así. Una vez que sus antepasados adoptaron toda costumbre y pasaron ya 4 generaciones, alágicamente ya no se considera que tienen una unión con el pueblo de Israel. Si ya no hubo una enseñanza respecto al judaísmo, no se conservaron las tradiciones y costumbres, a partir de la 5ª generación ya no se considera que puedan ser judíos, sino que son gentiles y es necesaria una conversión, toda vez que perdieron su judaísmo y tradiciones. Contrario a Bnei Anousim, que son personas que se escondieron y conservaron la línea de costumbres, la línea de credo, y fueron perseguidos precisamente por esto, porque se negaban a adoptar plenamente otra religión y trataban de hacer seclusión, esconderse y vivir secretamente como judíos. Muchas veces la gente, por curiosidad, lo primero que hace es una prueba de ADN. Es decir, antes de meterme en un rollo de un proceso de conversión o de retorno, voy a ver si soy o no soy. Y puede que el resultado genere que te convenzas al respecto por el porcentaje al respecto. Pero si vas con un rabino y presentas simplemente un resultado de ADN, te va a decir que no es suficiente, sino que necesitas estas otras 3 requisitos nombrados anteriormente.
Now, let's talk about names in the family. It's the same thing as with DNA. The names might be a Sephardic name, Sephardic Portuguese, Sephardic Spanish name, but without the customs and traditions, can't tell if it's from the Bnei Anousim because that's missing, okay? So that wouldn't be enough. Now, we do have a list of names that the Spanish government published as Sephardi names, but it's only a starting point. Again, if the names in the person's mother's female line has a lot of those surnames, okay, in the family tree, again, that's a good evidence. That's a strong evidence, but without customs and traditions, it wouldn't be strong enough. Now, talking about names, I'll tell you the one in my family, which is absolutely obvious crypto-Jewish name. After I returned, my uncle had a friend of his going to the Azores, and he asked his friend to see if he could, from Ponta Delgada, which is the capital city, which my family is from, if he could get any documents about his mother, which would be my grandmother and the great-grandmother. The man came back with my mother's birth certificate, my grandmother's birth certificate, my grandfather's birth certificate, their marriage certificate, and my great-grandmother's birth certificate. Now, on the marriage certificate, there were people who signed that marriage document, one on each side of the family, and they both had the same last name. So that was interesting in itself. Of course, we know people married amongst their own family members, second and third cousins, whatever. But what the name was the most interesting. That surname was, we say in Portuguese, de Jesus, in Spanish, de Jesus, in English, of Jesus. The name of Jesus is a made-up name. Absolutely nobody would disagree. It's a crypto-Jewish name. So that's a very, very strong evidence of that family being crypto-Jews.
Muy bien, pasando ahora, por ejemplo, a los nombres. Por supuesto, podrías tener un nombre que te refiere a una relación con criptojudíos, y esto puede ser una muy buena prueba. Sin embargo, hay que tener más respaldo. Siempre las costumbres van a ser lo que más va a pesar dentro de las pruebas. Hay una lista de nombres que incluso publicó el gobierno de España respecto a nombres que eran muy comunes en criptojudíos, y también apellidos. Por supuesto, es importante focalizarnos en aquellos nombres por línea materna y sus apellidos. Ahora bien, nos dice Yaffa, si queremos saber respecto de su familia y cuál es el nombre que destacó en particular por ser criptojudío, bueno, resulta que luego de hacer este proceso de retornar, uno de sus tíos viajó a Punta Delgada para buscar un poquito más de información respecto a la familia. Resulta que encontró la relación ahí de su bisabuela, y encontró el acta de nacimiento de la abuela, el certificado de matrimonio de su bisabuela, y algunos de los que firmaban en este documento, curiosamente tenían el mismo apellido. Esto resulta curioso porque criptojudíos tendían a casarse, por ejemplo, entre primos y familiares cercanos, y el apellido que estaba allí plasmado era de Jesús. Este apellido es algo inventado, no existe tal apellido en el argot de apellidos comunes en España hasta que comenzó el tema de la Inquisición. Esto es algo sacado de la manga, inventado por criptojudíos para hacerse pasar como tal. Entonces esto fue una evidencia fuerte que ella tuvo como respaldo.
Okay, now the last thing is proof. What does it mean to have proof of being from the B'nai Anousim or crypto Jews or secret Jews? What it means is genealogy, and the research goes all the way back to like the 14th, 15th, 16th century. It's most likely going to be a document from Inquisition records of Spain or Portugal or one of the island colonies or whatever, or even in the New World, if the ancestors goes back to that, to the New World Inquisition records, of a woman who was persecuted or tortured or whatever, and that document of that woman and an unbroken female line going all the way to the person of today, and that's their ancestors, okay, that's proof. That document is proof. And if they took that proof, that whole genealogy, the family tree, and all that genealogical research and the actual document from many centuries ago, to an Orthodox Beit Din, the most Orthodox Beit Din you could think of, okay? What they would do from that document, that proof, is they would write a letter to the person saying that in the opinion of that Beit Din, they were born Jewish. No return, no conversion, no return. They simply declare them to be a Jew. Go ahead, Moshe.
Ahora, si hablamos de una prueba, es decir, presentar una prueba de que tienes ascendencia judía o que eres judío, sería, por ejemplo, esta. Si tienes en tu genealogía, hablamos de llegar a los registros de los siglos XIV, XV o XVI, en donde prácticamente estarías hurgando en los archivos de la Inquisición. Y allí que relate, por supuesto, tiene que venir el nombre, apellido, de alguna mujer que haya sido perseguida, que haya sido encarcelada, que haya sido torturada, y tengas una relación de parentesco vía materna con esta mujer. Si logras conseguir una prueba así, esto es una prueba fuertísima al respecto, lo único que es necesario es llegar con un Beit Din se puede agarrar al Beddin más estricto al respecto, y ellos simplemente al encontrar el nombre y una línea materna ininterrumpida, lo que hacen es entregar a la persona un certificado en donde dice que esta persona nació siendo judío.
Okay. Now, just let me give you my opinion of this population of B'nai Anousim today, worldwide, globally. Okay. In the business world, we use the concept of the 80-20 rule a lot. So here's the way it looks, and it could be a little bit off, but 80-20 goes like this for the B'nai Anousim. About 80% of the people who are from the B'nai Anousim would have to convert. They would not have enough evidence to convince a Beit Din, okay, either that they're a returnee, strong enough evidence, or proof even that they're from a woman of whatever number of centuries ago who was Jewish. So and it could be because the Catholic Church didn't hold the records of their family that they needed. It could be a lot of things. By the way, some of these records are being digitized today. Portuguese records, and I assume they're going to do Spanish records also, are being digitized to make it easier for people to do these searches. But in any event, I'd say maybe about 80% of the people would not be able to either have strong enough evidence or proof. Then if you take the 20%, 18 of that 20% could be a returnee. Somebody who has strong enough evidence, but not proof, and the Beit Din would give them a return certificate, not a conversion certificate, a return certificate. And about 2%, so this is very, very rare. I know 3 women who did this, okay, who actually got the proof, going all the way back to a Jewish female ancestor in their mother's female line. I know 3 women who did it. But so I'd say across the board of the B'nai Anousim population, about 2% would be able to do that and provide a Beit Din the proof. So it's very rare. So 18 and 2% makes 20, and then the rest is the 80% that would probably have to convert.
Ok, ahora, si quieren mi opinión al respecto, vamos a hablar de estadística, población y B'nai Anousim. Tenemos el juego de 80-20. En ese sentido, el 80% de aquellas personas que pueden pensar tener un ancestro judío, poder tener un linaje judío, en realidad tendrían que hacer conversión. ¿Por qué? Probablemente no encuentren o tengan suficiente evidencia. Pueden tener algunos de los requisitos, 1 o 2, tal vez no todos los requisitos de que provengan de familia de B'nai Anousim, o puedan probar la línea materna ascendente hasta una mujer que figura en los registros de la Inquisición. Muchas veces no porque la persona no tenga idea, sino porque simplemente no hay los registros al respecto, se perdieron, no fue registrado, aunque ya ahorita la tecnología nos está ayudando y hay algunos registros digitalizados, en particular del gobierno portugués. No dudamos que el gobierno español vaya a hacer lo propio en un tiempo determinado. Ahora, hablando del 20% restante, 18% en realidad podrían ser retornados, es decir, pueden lograr juntar estas 4 condiciones y presentarlas ante un Beit Din para lograr un certificado de retorno, no de conversión, y tener éxito al respecto. El 2% restante, que es por supuesto bastante minúsculo comparado con el grueso de la población, es gente que podría tener una prueba concreta. La Rabanit conoce a 3 mujeres que de hecho pudieron probar su link o su conexión directa con una mujer en un registro de la Inquisición y probaron esto frente a un Beit Din. Por lo tanto, en realidad, el grueso de la población habría que hacer conversión, pero bueno, así es como se desarrolla la estadística.
Yofi. Okay, Les, the ball's in your court. See if anyone else has any questions or would like to share something. Is Les still here?
Yes, he is. Let's see. But he may have, asked to start video. He may be on the train going home. He may be here, but he's not here, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
So I see he's there and he's still recording, but we don't see him.
Okay.
So let's go back to questions and comments from other people.
Yeah. People, raise your hand if you'd
And
like
if
to
they
comment.
speak in Spanish, so then maybe Moshe can translate back into English.
Absolutely, he can. I'm sure he can.
Well, let's say, I didn't mean can, but would.
Oh,
That
yeah.
I know he can. But the question is that if President Nam doesn't feel comfortable speaking in English, so then Moshe would translate back into English for people who don't understand Spanish.
Let's put him to a test.
Ok. Bueno, entonces, si hay alguna persona que quiere referir alguna pregunta en español para poder presentarla en inglés, con muchísimo gusto puedo hacer la traducción al inglés para presentarla.
נכון. Carlos, not sorry, Juan, did I answer your question that you had? Enough?
Well, it seems like he lost connection. He's not anymore in the room.
We
Okay.
have 10. We had 11 before, and I heard I think he left or he lost his connection. Also, Les had to go at 8:30. Sent me a note that I'll conclude the program at 9 to say thank you very much. That's what he usually does, but he's still recording, so he's left his computer on, and he's still recording as I am, which is good in
Okay.
case my system crashes.
Right.
Of the nation represented this evening, which seem to be the most recalcitrant? Again, not the government of a particular country, but the Jewish communities they're in, which appear to be more reluctant to embrace the Anousim, or is it just their conspiratorial agreement across the borders of all of them not to make it more difficult for the Anousim to be integrated?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not even countries so much as subgroups of Jewish communities. The Syrians are the most staunchest proponents of this takana, and it started with a Syrian community in Argentina, and then the Ashkenazi community in Argentina also adopted it. But then it went to other Jewish communities, not even Syrian or Ashkenazi, it could be Moroccan, whatever. And it's hard to tell exactly, which I'll find out when I start calling these rabbis in Latin American countries. I know Mexico is also very staunchly opposed. They like the idea of the B'nai Anousim coming back, but they still observe, Takana. In Colombia, there was an article a couple of months ago in Ami magazine about Medellin, the city in Colombia where there are a lot of B'nai Anousim. They have their own community. And the person who interviewed people for that article, some of the Jewish people in Colombia said, well, this is actually good because they're amongst themselves. They're all converts and they're with each other, and we're, on our own. Kind of like they put a very positive spin on it, that these communities are separated. They even said that in the beginning in Latin America, the Syrian communities and the Ashkenazi communities were also separated. As if to say, this is not a bad thing and it's not even discriminatory. It's just that there are times when it's a good thing that people are amongst like people, people like themselves in their own community. But the difficulty I have with that and that article was, did they ever mention that because the B'nai Anousim have to create their own communities, they're denied the right to make aliyah? No, they didn't bring up the elephant in the room.
Right.
And that's the issue for us. It's not so much that they have to have their own community. Maybe even the people themselves like that, being the fact that they have their own community. Okay, so that's not the issue. And I was talking to somebody else just before this Zoom meeting. And I said, there's two paths we could go. We could either try to convince all the Jews in Latin America to drop the takana and allow all these people to join their communities, okay? Or we can convince one person, and all we need is one person to either get rid of the administrative policy against the emerging community people or change it so that for people in Latin America, there's an exception process, okay, which is done all the time. You develop a policy, but then there's an exception process. We do it in the business world all the time. And what I said to the woman I was talking to, I think it's the long haul answer to try to change all the Jewish communities in all these Latin American countries, whether they're Syrian or not, to include the B'nai Anousim in their communities. That's the long haul, if we had to do it. Why not just change one person, the current Minister of Interior, to change the administrative policy or get rid of it? So that's why we're doing this media campaign, so that we can find influencers, get influencers on our side in the Jewish diaspora, in all these other ways, and ultimately in Israel, okay, to convince the Minister of Interior, who is now Ayelet Shaked,
Yeah.
okay, to put together an exception process. That's the least she could do, and that would be doing the right thing. And then let's open it up to my view. Let's open it up to 5,000 people. Let's see how many apply, how many of those who apply qualify, okay, by whatever rules the Ministry of Interior wants to set up. Let's just do something to help the B'nai Anousim. Now, once word gets out that Israel is doing that, would more people try to come back either through conversion or return? Yes, of course. But then we would see how many would do that. How many are really interested in doing this? We don't know right now how many would do it. All we know is most people I talk to anyway in the Latin American countries believe that Israel not only has this ban against them right now, but they will never change it. They don't want them. They don't, have something against them, whatever. They are determined to discriminate against these people, and they'll never change. That's what we need to change. Let's have Israel do the right thing, and then we'll see how many people, want to come back. It's not going to be in the millions, not in my opinion. It's going to be in a few thousand, or could even be maybe a few 100,000 or 100, whatever, but it's not going to be in the millions. I don't think Israel needs to be afraid of it. Not at all.
Deep down is the fear, is the element of fear. And I constantly contrast it with our own American history of segregation, frankly, and also I think I shared with you and the audience in the earlier program my nephew's own experience. He's married to a Syrian woman now 11 years. I remember 2010, but prior to that, what they put him through to prove that there is such a thing as a Greek Jew. They never heard of a Sephardic Jew from Salonika. I mean, this is the kind of esoteric community in both Deal, New Jersey and Brooklyn, New York. These are very, very insular families that control not only the destiny of their sons and daughters in professions, but also whom they will marry. Absolutely. So I can see that the fact that they admitted him into the family after a struggle, with the intercession of the chief rabbis of the Sephardic rabbis in Israel, and because he was born in Israel, and in Athens, it's just astounding to me. So what the Anousim are going through is not uncommon, and I hope that through persistence and through goodwill and through gradual admittance into the greater Jewish community, there will be more acceptance.
Well, the thing is now, it's a tradition in the Syrian community and all these other communities that have accepted the Takana. It's now a tradition. It's 93 years old. from 1927. I was born 20 years after the Takana in 1947, okay? So it's now a long-standing tradition. So what I said to this woman I was talking to was, no, that's the long haul, and I don't choose that right now to try to convince people. I'd rather try to convince this one person in Israel to do the right thing, okay, and allow an exception process, because it's not fair. Just because these B'nai Anousim live in Latin American countries, it's not true for the US or Canada, but for B'nai Anousim, and we're getting in touch with people like that all the time. Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, Indonesia, like East Timor, all over Europe, all over North Africa and the Middle East, in the Balkans, in Greece. Any of these people who come out of hiding and want to be accepted and recognized as a Jew from the B'nai Anousim in all of these other countries did not have this problem. It's only in Latin America, and it's mainly because of the Takana. So have an exception process, that's all. We do it in business all the time. It's not a big deal.
I look forward to future conflicts about the levels of observance, you know, that we have here. Oh, you're not as kosher, or you're not whatever mishigas there exists, you know, to prove that you are superior, a superior Jew to another one.
But wait a minute, in the Sephardi world, with the B'nai Anousim who are coming in,
Yeah,
okay, we have the Sephardi Hashkafa.
right.
And the Sephardi Hashkafa says, if you're a Jew, you're my brother. And I'm not going to get into any of this stuff about
Exactly.
level of observance, or you have this minhag different from me, or you attend this kind of shul different from me. We don't, in the Sephardi world, by the way, we don't have all these labels across the forehead. Haredi, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstruction, Renewal. We don't use the labels. You know what the label is? Traditional Sephardi Jew. Traditional, because we follow traditions.
Right.
Sephardi and Jew.
Yaffa,
That's who we are.
I had to come to America to find out about the variations of Judaism. There, all of us were in Greece, all of us were traditional. The women were upstairs, the men were upstairs. There were no aliyot for women, you know, it was strictly no microphone, etc. I did not know that that was the Orthodox tradition, but it was the tradition. Here, oh, you are Sephardi. Oh, you are this. Unbelievable.
So let me share a story with you, okay?
Go ahead.
16 years ago, we had a man come here to Israel from Colombia. He's a good friend of mine today. He's on our team. He's managing director. He handles Colombia for us. He and his cousin came on a trip to Israel from B'nai Anousim, and it was Pesach time. So the men brought these guys to this, it's the shul in Nachlaot in Yerushalayim, okay, the Carlbach shul.
Yes.
And two men, Colombians, to all the other guys, you know, I'm sitting in the women's section, but I know what's going on. And you know what they did? They danced with them. They were so welcoming. They were so incredible to these two men from Colombia. Okay, so after all of that, we're walking back to where they were staying. And this friend of mine, he has tears in his eyes. And I looked at him. I mean, it was such a beautiful thing that these guys did with these Colombian guys. I looked at him and I said, what's wrong? You know, I couldn't believe it. And he said to me, Yaffa, he said, you don't understand. He said, we would love to do this in Colombia, but they won't let us into the synagogues. They won't let us go to the synagogues. Okay, this was 16 years ago. Obviously, they have groups now, you know, their own communities and stuff, but they had to, they had no choice. He was so touched and so affected by the welcoming of these Jews in Yerushalayim for these two Colombian guys. Okay, it was emotional for him compared to where he lives or lived back then. He's in Jerusalem now, by the way. He and his wife made Aliyah after 15 years of trying. Okay, so it's just a huge, huge struggle for people. And I want the struggle to go away. I want them to be treated like every other Jew. Okay, that they have the right to come to the homeland of the Jewish people like every other Jew, and that they don't have to suffer this anymore. It's very, very emotional for them.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, anybody else have a question or a comment? Or I know, Moshe, it's too long for you to translate all that, but thank you for all your translations. Anyone else? Because, you know, we can say the meeting is over. We've got a few minutes left if somebody wants to comment or ask a question. Anybody? Moshe, why don't you ask people in Spanish?
Bueno, agradecemos su asistencia a la gente que estuvo acá. Si alguien tiene alguna pregunta respecto a lo expuesto en esta ponencia de nuestra amiga la rabanita Deborah Yaffa, pueden hacerlo a continuación, lo podemos traducir al inglés y luego obtener la respuesta en lo que restan estos últimos minutos de esta conferencia.
Well, if no one has a question or comment in Spanish at the moment, I mean, I have so many, I didn't want to start. But now that we're coming to the end of the program, first I have one question for Zorba the Jew. Are you a Romaniot Jew or a Jew from the Gerush Sfarad of Portugal in 1492?
Both. Both.
Both. Okay.
Remember that my father was born in Trikala in Thessaly. My mother was born in Salonika. And when they met and fell in love, it was made a condition for their courtship that he had to learn Ladino because his future in-laws had just come into the sovereignty of Greece in 1912, and they did not speak Greek that fluently. Little did they know that within 2 years they would be going to Auschwitz. You know, but in the meantime, my father, what is love after all? Impetuous. He did learn to speak Spanish.
And I understand, because Asher knows, I may have mentioned this before, Dvorah, but we at our family, when we lived in New York City on the Lower East Side, we attended for 4 years the Beit Kilat Kedoshei Yanana on Broome Street. It's they said it was, maybe it's changed, the only Romaniot synagogue in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
And so on on the Chagim, the high holidays, we had prayers in Ladino, Romaniot, and Hebrew.
That's right.
Why? Because the people, there was a synagogue of Jews from Monastir, but by the time we came along, most everyone was gone to Olam Haba, the kids who had gone to Olam HaWest, the suburbs. And so they had to come together. They didn't have a daily minyan. And on Shabbat, they would be together. And that's why I learned at Kiddush, you don't have schmaltz, herring, and schnapps. You have uzu and feta cheese and berekas and olives.
I can't wait for you to come to the Sephardic temple in Syracuse, where when we open the ark to take out the Torah on Shabbat, we do the Brit Shemeh in Ladino. Yours truly sings it. Bendito su nombre del Señor el mundo.
Okay. Lowell, what's your question? Lowell, what's your question?
Well, it's really a comment in a wider context. If we are now in the end new beginning of days, a historic prophetic change in world history, then a lot of things happen on the one hand very slowly, but on the other hand very fast. So in terms of bringing the 12 tribes of Israel back together in all shapes and sizes and forms, we're dealing with people of partial Jewish ancestry in Eastern Europe who are left coming out of hiding. or people in southern Italy, and or people in the Spanish and the Portuguese world. Then we're dealing with the lost tribes themselves, whoever and wherever they are. Let's say, first of all, the issue of coming back to the land of Israel physically doesn't make any sense, because the land of Israel is the size of New Jersey with the population density of Singapore. It's already overcrowded. So it says somewhere in the commentaries that Jerusalem will expand to fill the land of Israel, the land of Israel will expand to fill the world. So that in coming home, if you're in the Pashtunim in the mountains of Afghanistan or Pakistan, or you are, whoever you are, wherever you are, coming home doesn't necessarily mean you have to crowd into, an expanded version of the Warsaw Ghetto. We're going to put 500,000 people in a place for 30,000 people. That doesn't make any sense. So then the whole issue of conversion or not conversion, and or yes, I want to come home, but no, I don't want to wear Strimal, have payas, and or do all of that sort of stuff. It has to be looked at, as just said, in a broader context. And for this, I didn't grow up. First of all, I grew up mostly in a Gentile world. I didn't experience anti-Semitism, Jew hatred. I only read about it. Now, Asher experienced the real thing, but I didn't. For me, it was somewhere else in some other time. All these issues of the Sephardim and Ashkenazim and groups and groups within groups within groups, and this one doesn't matter.
What's the question?
The question is, I don't know if it's a question so much as a comment, that in bringing Jews or the 12 tribes back together, then the question would be, what does that mean? And it certainly doesn't make any sense for it to mean that everybody has to, whether you get a return certificate or you go through a conversion process with legitimate Beit Din. I'm not sure we're dealing with 500 million people worldwide, which we might be, that even applies.
So let me share with you this. First of all, it doesn't matter the name on the top of the certificate, whether it says conversion or return. What it is essentially is a confirmation of the person's Jewish identity. When I speak of that, I'm talking about the B'nai Anousim, okay? The rabbis of the Beit Din say essentially, we accept you as a Jew. Now for a convert, okay, they go into the mikveh and they say the blessing of the convert, which actually spiritually makes the change from Gentile to Jew, okay? Or assume Gentile because they don't have enough evidence, whatever. For a returnee, they go into the mikveh without the blessing. For somebody who has proof that they're from the B'nai Anousim, they simply get a letter saying they were born Jewish. Now, if you go beyond the B'nai Anousim to all the lost tribes, and you include the Pashtun in all that, because we're already bringing in the B'nai Menashe, we've already brought in the Ethiopians, okay, we've already brought in people from Yemen, whether they're lost tribes or not, I don't know. But the point is, for all that to happen, the boundaries of Israel are going to change. That's probably going to be after the war of Gog and Magog, and that's probably during the Messianic era. So you've got who comes in and how many before Mashiach, and he finishes it. He's the one who completes it. And by the way, the rabbis taught, the sages taught, it's not who starts it that gets the credit. It's he who completes the deal. Okay, so Mashiach will complete it, Mashiach ben David. And it's probably going to include a change of boundaries of what's called Israel in those days. No question about it. It's not a big deal. We don't have to bring 500 million people, whether you're talking about B'nai Anousim or Pashtun or anybody else, into this small New Jersey-sized sliver of what's called Israel today. That's not the way it's going to work. So we'll be able to bring in a certain number of thousands or 100,000 or 50,000, whatever that number is, before Mashiach. That's the fight for right now. Not what happens after that, not what happens during the Messianic era when Mashiach is definitely here, the temple has been built, all of that stuff, the boundaries are changed. People don't move, they stay where they are, but what's called Israel will be different. That's my vision, that's what I think is going to happen. Okay, very easy. But we've got so many people that are afraid of all of this and prophecy being fulfilled that they won't lift a little finger to help even a few thousand B'nai Anousim to come in. That's the fight.
Well, usually it comes down to, are you going to vote for my party, the other guy's party? And then we'll see if we can get our guys into Knesset. So when everybody steals, more can go into my pushka than into your pushka. And of course, we make it look legal. So
Right.
it comes down to very human, understandable factors. That was why, I mean, also you mentioned the B'nai Menashe. I don't personally believe that the claims that they're from the lost tribes are true. That doesn't mean they're not nice people, and that doesn't mean they can't convert. And anyway, it's all speculation at the moment, who is, but there's many references to them. I personally don't, I think they were some sort of a group that got interested in Jewish customs. And whether that is or is not true, we'll only know in the future when Elijah and Mashiach arrive. But in the meantime, certainly, like you say, what to do now, the opposition that you're getting, I imagine, anytime, the devil is, we know is preferable to the devil we don't know, and everybody is thinking, are you going to vote for my party? Are you going to vote for their party? This is human nature the way it is. So you're going to get a lot of resistance. You're doing something different. Well, how is it going to affect me? And when I get out of the budget, usually when we all get in
Right.
there.
So here's the bottom line. I would like, and Moshe, if you would translate this, please. And again, thank you so much for being here and for all your wonderful translation. We have a couple of minutes left. So my last comment is, I want to invite everyone, anyone, to not only consider joining our teams for social media, print media, and all the other campaigns we're going to be doing, but also spread the word, okay? Send this video of the Zoom meeting so people can at least understand this phenomena, this movement that's going on today, what we need to do to break this wall of resistance, even just for a few thousand B'nai Anousim to come home to Israel, which, by the way, our ancestors prayed for this, like the ancestors of every other Jew, that someday their descendants would be able to come home to our ancestral land that was promised to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as an eternal covenant. This land and our connection to it is described in Psalm 105 as an eternal covenant. I read the Psalm every day. So please share the video and contact me. You have my email address. If you'd like to contact me, please do. Share the video, invite other people. This is an opportunity for people to serve Hashem in this way regarding this particular movement. I know a lot of people serve Hashem in a lot of different ways, so I'm not trying to accuse anyone that they don't serve Hashem already, okay? But this is another way to serve Hashem. If you'd like to get more involved, please contact me. Moshe, thank you very much. Translate that, please, in Spanish, and then we'll pass it back to you, Lowell. Thank you, Moshe.
Es un gusto. Entonces, bueno, para terminar esta conferencia el día de hoy, nos dice la Romanit Yaffa Costa que, bueno, a todos aquellos que escucharon, estén interesados en poder ayudar en todo este proyecto para apoyar a los B'nai Anousim en el mundo, no solo consideren unirse como voluntarios en alguno de los proyectos, en alguno de las secciones que tienen que ver con difundir esta idea, sino lo pueden hacer por voz propia, pueden compartir el enlace de este video y por supuesto que a la gente le llegue la información y puedan tomar decisiones con base a información. Y por supuesto, trayendo a colación el hecho de que tenemos toda esta historia que nuestros ancestros esperaban por tanto tiempo, que hubiera siquiera esta situación, que llegara el momento en el que pudiera haber un retorno espiritual y físico, como lo nombró hace ratito, y pudiera llegarse nuevamente a la tierra de Israel. Y como está nombrado también en las escrituras, esto ha sido un pacto eterno entre Dios y su pueblo. Por lo tanto, toda la gente que quiera apoyar, unirse a los esfuerzos, puede ser una forma también como servir a Hashem, no diciendo que no lo hace cada quien en sus formas particulares, pero esta es otra de las opciones que hay para desempeñar un servicio a Hashem.
Okay, Lowell.
I have a question for Yaffa. I have 2 emails for you. I want to ask something, but not in the group. I have one on Gmail and I have another one of Yahoo. Which one of the two is the right email?
I'm mostly on Yahoo. I do have a Gmail account for that I use when somebody sends me a large file and Yahoo can't handle it. They send it to me on Gmail and I use it for Google Docs and other, Google kind of applications, but I'm not on it very often, to be honest with you. So my yahoo.com email address is the one I use every day, multiple times a day.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, I suppose I'm supposed to make, usually I'm not used to this because Les usually makes the concluding benediction remarks, so I'll do it. All right, let me get set up for that just a second. We began. Okay, so I want to thank Yaffa for hosting another wonderful seminar, episode number 3 in our monthly B'nai Anousim seminar series, which is Yaffa's idea, and we're so glad that we can help the B'nai Anousim movement by doing this. And I thank Moshe in Mexico for the simultaneous translations for Yaffa. We are broadcasting from the land of Israel, city of God, Hill of the Priests, City of God, Jerusalem, Hill of the Priests, Abu Tor, Givat Hananiah, overlooking Mount Moriah, where we believe that the third and final Israelite Temple of Jerusalem will soon be under reconstruction and stand forever, as per the prophet Ezekiel. Please see the biblical book of Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48. And we always like to say it is Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 in the Gregorian calendar. And well, now that it's the evening, it's the 14th of Av, 5781 in the Hebrew Israelite calendar. We are coming up not only on Shabbat, which is Parshat Va'et Chanan and Shabbat Nachamu, but the 15th of Av is the Israelite Sadie Hawkins Day, for those of you who know Little Abner, which is like, I don't know if they got the idea from us, or it may be in other cultures too. And so it's time of happiness, and we're going through the Shabbat Tot of consolation, approaching Elul and the Chagim, and hopefully we'll have good things to celebrate in the next days and weeks and months after what we've been through in the past days and weeks and months. So I want to thank all our viewers and listeners for joining us, and I wish you Shabbat Shalom, and have a great weekend for those of you who have a 2-day weekend from Jerusalem, Israel. And now I say good night to everybody.